Ladies and gentlemen, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thanks for taking your lunch hour, depending on where you are watching us today. Welcome to another Lojua Quick Take webinar. My name is Wayne Newitz with Lojua, and we are very thrilled to put these webinars on every other Friday for you. Take about 15, 20 minutes of your time, and our goal is every time to have you come away with one or two things that you did not know before in that short amount of time. So that's our goal. And without further ado, let's get started with this week's topic. And that is warehouse automation, the three keys to warehouse automation. Obviously, something that everyone is talking about. If you read industry media publications, look at the news about our industry, automation and robotics are everywhere. The real question is, how do we move from where we are now into a world that is more automated? And that's a big question with a lot of answers to that. We're going to cover a few of them today, and I'm thrilled to have my colleague, Dilek Hafizoglu, join us. Those of you who are regular viewers of our Quick Take webinars will recognize our presenter here. Dilek, hello, and I guess in your time zone, good, thanks for taking your lunch hour to join us today.
Hello.
All right, Dilek, without further ado then, let me be quiet and I'll turn over the presentation to the expert.
Thank you, Wayne. Hello, everyone. So today we are going to be talking about the warehouse automation. So first of all, we just wanted to emphasize how e-commerce growth would be related to automation, because as you can see from the statistics that we have, it's been growing very aggressively for the past few years. And also it's forecasted to grow even more in the future. So I really like the statement that we put up here. So I would like to actually emphasize it and say that the warehouse automations are not competitive advantage anymore, but they are competitive imperative. So today we will be discussing specifically three key topics for warehouse automation. Next slide, please. Thank you. And these are our three main topics: the intelligent order automation, the robotic automations, and last but not least, the smart order routing. Thank you. So when it comes to the intelligent order automation, of course, we are talking about automating your outbound processes. So outbound process would be very critical to automate because you want to make sure that your outbound operations are efficient, so you will have efficient scale within your warehouse. And firstly, we can talk about the automation rules that you can set up for orders. So these automation rules can affect in various different ways the operations within a warehouse for the orders. And one example I can give you here, it's actually the promotional item process. Because as warehouses grow, they start selling online, you can see that you are starting to offer more promotional items. And with this automation rule, actually you can set up a specific rule that will look for a trigger for an order that has a specific SKU to add and insert a promotional item to it. So the warehouse operations would be also aware of it and will be doing the picking and the packing process for that promotional item as well. Then we have the shipping box suggestion algorithms. So the shipping box suggestion algorithm, it actually means that the orders, weight, and volume would be calculated by the system, and the system will suggest and recommend a specific shipping box. So suggesting a shipping box, why would be important? Just imagine you are the packer, and at the packing station, the system already tells you which box to use. You don't have to measure it. You don't have to weigh it. You don't have to be just selecting an option on the screen. By this way, you can automate that packing process and you will save time and you will have a more efficient process. Then we have the rate shopping. Of course, when we think about rate shopping, everyone thinks about getting the cheapest rate. But it's not only that. We can get the cheapest rate, or you can get a cheapest rate wherever. But it's important to make sure that you are comparing the correct options. So for example, let's say that you have an order that you know that you want to ship with ground, but you have multiple carriers and you have multiple rates available. So a carrier rate shopping should be set up in a way that it will compare all of the ground options and give you the cheapest one between those. Then last but not least, I wanted to save this to last because I think it's a very critical automation for a warehouse, and it's the automated order batching. Batching your orders is just creating the flows in the warehouse to optimize not only picking process, but also the packing process as well. So let's think about that. You have on an average, on a daily average, 100 orders for a pen, let's say, and your picker or pickers go to that one location 100 times a day to pick the same item. That wouldn't be efficient. It will tire your workers, which you don't want to, because you want them to work more, right? And also, you will just make unnecessary routes to the same location. So that's why grouping those 100 orders together and sending one picker only once to that location to pick 100 units at the same time would save you a lot of time and a lot of effort. This is just one example, by the way. Based on my experience, I can also give you some examples that I've seen very commonly affecting optimizing processes within a warehouse would be batches for multi-item orders or single item orders. But let's say that you have a specific process. Definitely, order batch can be created for that as well. Like, for example, if you have oversized items, you can group those orders separately. Or for example, you want to group specific shipping method orders together and create a batch with them. That should be also possible, because by this way, you are optimizing your processes and you will be having easier processes within the warehouse. Thank you. Next slide, please. These are some examples that I wanted to put here. So on the left-hand side of the screen, you can see the examples for the automation rules. And on the first example, the trigger is to check the shipping method and then assign a planned pickup date. The second example is to check for the SKU in an order and assign and insert another SKU within this order, which would be our example for the promotional item process. On the right-hand side of the screen, you can see the rate shopping example that I just gave you, where you are comparing two different carriers with two of their each shipping method and getting the cheapest one between those. And last but not least, the most important one, the batching of the orders. As you can see, the most popular ones, as I mentioned, are identical SKU, single item, and the multi-item. But it is very flexible to create batches based on different criteria. Next slide, please. Now, robotics. Robotics was our future before, but now it's our present. So that's why it is very important to start using robotics to automate your warehouse operations if you would like to scale. But of course, it can be scary. If you are someone who's running a warehouse for years with certain processes and you have a certain way of working, implementing robotics to your warehouse operations might be scary. But just don't think about it like you are going to bring robotics to the warehouse and they're going to do everything for you. Of course, this is scary and not possible. So that's why you can start small. You can start with specific processes. For example, robots that do the picking process. Another example, robots that do the replenishment process. And by this way, step by step, you can start implementing robotics to your warehouse operations and automating your warehouse. And another thing here that's very important is actually that all these robots are programmed to a specific process, right? The picking robot would be doing the picking process. The robot for replenishment would be replenishing a location with inventory. But where do they get that information from, right? There should be a system to send this information to that robot to make sure that the robots are working fine. They are fulfilling their goal. And this can be done with a WMS. So having a WMS working hand in hand with a robotic system would be the best way to apply this robotic automation to your warehouse. And here, lastly, I actually would like to talk about my experience personally, where I worked with a robotic integration. And next slide, please. Here you will see some images of myself where I went to MPR Logistics and we implemented Locus Robotics. And I would like to share 3 key points that I think should be taken into consideration when a warehouse is implementing or a person is implementing robotics. First of them is that there should be a very stable plan. What do I mean by that? There are multiple organizations involved in this project: the warehouse team, the robotic team, and also the WMS team. So having a good communication, having good milestones set beforehand, and making sure that everyone is okay and clear with those, it's very critical. A second thing I can mention about this is that the physical testing. So of course, they will be coding like the program, the robots will be programmed, the WMS will have the coding connection, but don't trust this until you see it physically happen. You should be able to go to the warehouse and see these robots in action to make sure that that coding, it's done properly and the robots are doing what they're supposed to do. And lastly, this is actually like what I talked so far with examples, it's before the live, but after the live of these robots within the warehouse. Also, having like going to the warehouse and seeing everything in person would be very critical. This example that you see is actually when I went there after the live process. And it was very important for me to make sure that the workers are also comfortable using these robots. Because just imagine like you are the person who's running the warehouse, but they are actually the ones who are going to be working with the robots. So it's very important to make sure that they understand what is their responsibility and what is the robot's responsibility. So the communication again after the live would be also something that I would highly recommend. Next slide, please. Last but not least, our third topic, smart order routing. So why did we separate the smart order routing as a third topic? Because it's very important. What we talked so far with automation rules, with rate shopping, this is all processes that happen after the orders are in the warehouse. But this order routing is actually before that. It's the first step when the order will be transitioning from the store after the customer places it to the warehouse. And what is an order routing? Let's say that you have a business and you have multiple warehouses. You want to make sure that the orders are routed to the correct warehouse. So by this way, you will make sure that these orders are processed better, faster, and of course, more efficiently. And how an order routing system would impact a warehouse or an organization. First of all, it will also impact the top line and the bottom line. And by top line, I mean the customer satisfaction. If I'm a customer and you have two warehouses, East Coast and West Coast, and if I order an item from the East Coast, I don't want to wait an item arriving from the West Coast. It will take too long. So that's why as a customer, I would wait for this I will be expecting this order to be fulfilled fast. And if you make sure the order is routed to the correct warehouse, this will increase your service levels, which eventually will increase the customer satisfaction. Of course, also facilitating the expansion of your fulfillment networks. You might not have multiple warehouses today, but let's say you are planning to add them in the future. Then making sure these orders would be routed to the correct warehouse would be a key important point for you. And as for the bottom line, the cost savings. So of course, for example, if you are shipping an item from the East Coast to the East Coast, instead of shipping from the West Coast to the East Coast, it will be cheaper because there will be different carrier rates. So that's why it will also save you money. And I would like to give you a few examples here, as you can see, with the order routing options that can be applied. An order routing algorithm should be checking the inventory levels. So for example, if I have two warehouses, I need to make sure, the algorithm needs to make sure that I have the inventory in the correct warehouse. And if not, then we're going to use from the other warehouse because we want to fulfill that order. Let's say that you have the inventory in both of the warehouses. The next thing that needs to be checked is the distance. So we want to make sure that the closer warehouse to the customer address is selected. And the SKU here, the SKU bullet point I wanted to put is for the multi-item order specifically. Of course, these examples are not for single item identical orders. It's also for all of your orders. And if you have a multi-item order that's asking for 2 items, you might have one of them at one warehouse and the other one at the other warehouse. And you don't want to ship that order partially. You want to fulfill that order fully because you know you have it on the other warehouse. So that's why the good order routing system algorithm should be separating and splitting that order in 2 and sending the orders to the correct warehouse to fulfill for those 2 items. And lastly, another order routing algorithm can be applied for a shipping method or delivery date, where the orders would be sent according to this data to a warehouse. So this is all I actually wanted to talk about the smart order routing as well. And as for the next slide, I would like to give you the 3 quick takeaways from today's session. First of all, we talked about the smart order automation, intelligent order automation, and this would be very important that it will fit your operations, that you will create like tailor-fit solutions for your warehouse, so it will help you with scaling your business. Second, the robotics. I will actually right away just use the sentence here. Thanks, Wayne, for this. I think you put it very well. So I will just say the when is now, the why is the volume and the efficiency, and the how is through a WMS brain. And lastly, with the order routing, you shouldn't be relying on an e-commerce store where the order is sent or on a guesswork of the workers within the warehouse. You should be relying on a data-driven, intelligent algorithm to route your orders to the correct warehouses. So that was all I wanted to talk about. And thank you very much for listening to me. It was my pleasure to do this presentation, and thank you for giving me this opportunity, Wayne.
Thank you very much. And I'm sure everyone listening is thanking you for sharing your expertise. And if you had any doubts at all, that picture should show you we indeed have a warehousing expert with us here at Logiwa, and are thrilled to have you join us for every quick take you want to do, my friend. Speaking of, ladies and gentlemen, would love to have you back. So everyone who's attended today, we'll be following up with you and sending you a recording of this presentation, as well as a link to sign up for the next quick take 2 Fridays from now. And the topic, warehouse labor planning. Obviously, staffing continues and will probably likely continue to be an issue for us in this industry for the foreseeable future. Very important topic. Hope to see you there for our next quick take. Dilek, once again, thank you so much for sharing your expertise and your experiences with us. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us today. As always, we're here every other Friday. If you'd like to speak to us in between times, love to hear from you. One of the quickest ways to chat with us is to go to logiwa.com, request-a-demo. I'll put you right in touch with one of our warehousing experts. Thank you again. I hope everyone has a great rest of your day, your weekend, or whenever you're listening to this. Take care out there. Dilek, thanks again. Goodbye, everyone.